Welcome to Binge Watchers, where we talk about the stories and characters we love and the shows they live in. My name is Ron, and let's talk about Season 5 of House of Cards some more. More specifically, let's talk about what you guys had to say about the season. I didn't pick out the comments for this in advance. Maybe I should have. Let's just scroll through and see what we see. I stopped watching the moment you made the parallel with Trump and Hillary. Right, the whole world revolves around you, and every being is upset and have to mock the election so that you can feel better. So in my review, I talked a little bit about the points in the season that I felt were like heavy-handed parallels between reality and the fiction of House of Cards. And obviously the show was written and filmed and wrapped up long before the election and long before Trump became president. I still feel, and this comparison is not something that I'm making up. It's something that you can see that the creators of the show have said on interviews. But I still feel that there were certain parts of the show that felt out of place. Maybe it was more like the creators of the show or the writers of the show inserted certain things into Frank's character, or specifically into Frank's monologues, his fourth wall breaking monologues, that would only make sense if Trump was elected president, because there were just parts that felt out of character, like that whole speech about why not me, the person who breaks the rules, who doesn't apologize, the strong man, all of that. And also during the inauguration, there were like cutaway parts that just felt like they were inserted later. Maybe I got it completely wrong, but yeah, that's just how I felt, and I'm sorry if I turned you away from the video. Obviously, by the way, spoiler alert, massive spoilers all throughout this video, but the review was a spoiler video as well, so we should be safe. Alright, next comment. Ever since Claire murdered Tom, it went downhill from there. His death came out of nowhere and it felt so pointless. Her suddenly despising Francis out of nowhere made no sense either. I kind of agree, because I think the competition between Claire and Frank has been building up for a while now. We start to see it in season 3. In seasons 1 and 2, Claire and Frank are a very unified front. It's Claire and Frank against everybody else. And then in season 3, there's a big gap in their relationship. There's a big gap between them and their, I guess, like the trajectory that each of them takes. And then in season 4, towards the end, they sort of come back to that unified front that we saw in seasons 1 and 2. And that falls apart in season 5. Leading all the way to the final episode where Claire is president and she's not taking Frank's call and she says, "My turn." So I don't know if Claire hating Frank or despising Frank or anything like that is a surprise. I think they did build up to that. Maybe they pulled the trigger, like the switch was a bit too much, a bit too abrupt, and it had to be built up a bit further in this season. I do agree about Claire killing Tom Yates being pointless and kind of like what were you going for with that? I didn't like that scene at all. What about Frank's sexuality? What about it? I mean, I think that the fact that Frank is bisexual has been explored already, so this season is just playing off of that and, you know, continuing that aspect of Frank's personality. So I don't think it's anything super unique or interesting in this season specifically. I actually didn't like the whole story with Eric, the whole thing with the guy who eventually becomes his personal trainer. I didn't like any of that. It didn't have anything to do with the fact that Frank is bisexual. They could have continued to explore that in more interesting ways, like they did with Meacham initially. But yeah, I don't feel that this season adds anything new to that. Love the channel, but a small hole in your logic. This season was shot before Trump got elected. First of all, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me when you guys say stuff like that. And I know that I just sound like a generic YouTuber saying that. Anyway, Yeah, I mean, of course, the season was shot and filmed and written and everything was wrapped up before Trump became president. But I mean, they definitely prepared for Trump becoming president. They definitely prepared for that option. The terrifying thing about season 5 was that it did show that there were machinations of power greater than Washington at work. I'm not an Illuminati conspiracist, but there were all types of interest in the world that seemed to have leverage over everything. Don't ignore Wendy Davis and what's his name, manipulating the circumstances with all of the power of the presidency and none of the rules. I think in this scenario, elected officials are shown to be amateurs. This is actually something that the show does very well. It shows how outside forces influence Washington and influence the course of the country, the course of the presidency, which eventually does lead Frank to say that he'll be on the outside, on the private sector, and Claire will be on the inside as the president, and then they will have absolute power over everything. I very much dislike the way that they unveiled this plan, but I think it supports your comment. I used to admire the meticulous yet subtle planning and smug intellect of Frank and the mysterious yet unpredictable nature of Claire. What happened? Frank has become way too obnoxious, fumbling over loose ends, and Claire has lost her calculated self, reduced to another power-hungry character. I don't recognize them anymore, which is unfortunate, since season 4 reinforced them as a power couple. What happened? I totally agree with this. The characters of Frank and Claire have evolved in a number of ways since season 1. But in season 4, we sort of saw a return to form. We saw them reunite at the face of all adversity. We saw them reunite against everything. It was them against the world once more. And in season 4, did I say season 4 or 5? Anyway, in this season, in season 5, their characters have shifted dramatically. And Frank is no longer this mastermind that we love to love or love to hate. And Claire has also changed dramatically. So, I mean, I think that I get why this happened, because it's natural for characters to change and evolve and become different than who they were. And they can't just remain the same all the time. Something different has to happen. But I agree that I'm not a big fan of the direction that this season chose to go with. Don't get me wrong, this season, it's not like it was a bad season. I feel like we're just shitting all over it. But we have said all the reasons why we love House of Cards when we were talking about seasons 1 through 4. Seasons 1 and 2 are fantastic. Season 4 was pretty good. Season 4 was actually really good. And at this point, all that's left is to talk about the things that we didn't like. I felt that season 5 was a two-parter. The first half was a blockbuster, just fantastic, and the second half was a setup for season 6. Fantastic in its own right, but not as much as the first half. Yeah, they definitely dedicated a lot of time to set up season 6, which feels like it's gonna be a Frank versus Claire season. The reason that that it didn't really hit me as hard as I think they meant it to was that I thought that season 4 was gonna be the Frank versus Claire season already. Because by the end of season 3, if I remember correctly, they did have this gap between Frank and Claire, and they had problems in their relationship, and they were fighting. And I think that I was expecting that Frank versus Claire season to happen already. And when it didn't, I kind of got over the concept. I'm still going to watch it, of course. I still think that season 6 will be a solid TV show. But after season 5, I can't really say that House of Cards is like one of those shows that I'm eagerly anticipating, like super excited about, like I was before season 5 came out. And then season 5 kind of fizzled that out for me. I feel like Frank lied to her. He didn't really do all of that for her. I guess he was trying to manipulate her or to pretend he was still winning and in control. said that I believe he really meant that he was going to kill her if she doesn't pardon him. I'd love to watch next season to see them both at each other's throats. And that's exactly what I think is going to happen in the next season. I actually like this explanation better. I like that everything just fell apart. Nothing went according to plan. Frank never planned for Claire to be president, and then he just lied his way through it and made up this crazy explanation about how this was my plan all along. Unfortunately, that doesn't really align with what happened in the show, because he was the one that leaked the information to the press. He was controlling the leak, and he was controlling how that information got to the press, which supports his explanation of it was my plan all along. Maybe they'll reveal something in season 6 that pulls the rug from under that theory, hopefully. But I just think that season 6 is gonna be batshit crazy, because, now they're just killing people left and right, and I think that they're gonna do even more of that in season 6. I think season 6 is gonna be the last season. I really hope that season 6 is gonna be the last season, and I think that one of them is going to die. One of them is going to kill the other one. Claire will kill Frank, or Frank will kill Claire, and that will be the end of the show. I hope. I don't know. But I think it's at the point where it's probably too crazy. I don't know. So can you tell how bad I am at unscripted videos? I agree with you that the conversation where Frank reveals his master plan to Claire was disappointing. The thing that I loved about House of Cards so far was that we were always involved, always in the loop with Frank, and this season changed that. Also, I have always rooted for Frank and seen Frank as the main character of the show, so having Claire end up with the power at the end of the season was However, it should set up for a good next season when he kills her, or at least takes the power back. Side note, great video, love it as always. Thanks, Matthew, that's awesome of you to say. And I think that the explanation, that scene where Frank reveals everything and tells Claire, and like we've talked about this already, that scene pretty much is everything that I didn't like about this season. And I think you make the point perfectly about how so far we were able to enjoy Frank's schemes, whether they were good or just good for Frank, or just, downright evil, but we were able to enjoy them because we were a part of them. We were absolutely aware of everything that was going on, and we could have that smug feeling when another character was surprised of how did you pull this off, because we knew all along. And that is simply not here in this season, and they're able to just explain away stuff like, oh yeah, all this other stuff just happened behind the scenes. Which, yeah, I agree, is disappointing. If the writers of the show were half as smart as they pretend to be, they'd know that the real threat to democracy would be a popular president, not someone who everyone hates. Octavian was the most popular politician/leader in Rome, hence he successfully turned the Republic into an empire. It's just one of the criticisms, but it radiates into their approach to secret societies, how Congress works, how corruption functions. As seasons went by, they became less and less intelligent. I give this season a 6 out of 10. I feel that there was a point that was important for you to make, and you're projecting a little bit on the season, but an interesting comment nonetheless. I didn't like the scene where Claire breaks the fourth wall. I was hoping for her to say something epic, but she just says, I know you're there. I'd rather just see her breaking the fourth wall at the end when she says, my turn. Yes, I completely agree with this one, because the impact of knowing that Claire knows that we're here and that we're watching, we already had that at the end of season 4, because at the end of season 4, she looks straight at the camera along with Frank when he says, we bring the terror. So that was the moment where we're like, oh shit, she knows, she knows we're here. So when she gives that piece in season 5 about, I know you're there, blah, 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 I just don't care. Like, I don't care as much as Frank does. I don't do it for the attention. It didn't have a lot of impact for me, and it, just like the comment says, it wasn't epic. It wasn't very powerful. The last part of the season, the last scene where she looks straight at the camera and says, "My turn," that was incredibly powerful. That was an awesome scene. And it would have been even more powerful if that was the first time we've ever heard Claire talk directly to us. That's gonna wrap it up for this time, but I want to start making these at least once a week because this took me a while. I want to remind everybody that English is not my first language and I am not American, so yeah, I have a lot of outtakes of me just screwing up the English language horribly, so maybe I'll just put those up on a separate video as well. But yeah, this was a lot of fun to make. So remember, I read every single one of your comments when we talk about these TV shows, and I'm gonna start expanding that conversation into these videos. So always put your thoughts about the shows we talk about in the comments down below. So I hope you liked it. Please feel free to leave any other suggestions or comments about the types of videos you want to see on the channel in the comments down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help out a lot. And if you're finding binge watchers for the first time, welcome. I'd like to invite you to join the binge watchers community. Come talk about TV with us. It's a lot of fun. Subscribe to the channel. But in any case, keep binging, and I will see you next time.